It's day 354 off the grid.
And I pretty much spent this whole day, well, the useful part of it anyway, working on a system for this battery. This is in shed A, and this is just this sort of excess battery that's been sitting here, but I'm wanting to provide myself with yet another battery bank. I've already got 4 in here. This will be the 5th just in this shed. You may be wondering at the wisdom of having lots of little battery banks. Why don't I just have one big one? Well, it's basically different types of battery chemistries, batteries in different conditions, batteries tasked for different roles. And I'm finding this kind of lots of small sort of banks really useful, because you can rest one while you're charging up another and all sorts of different things. You can make sure that during the winter a battery bank gets long enough break that it gets a full charge while the others are working, and you can just rotate them round, you know. Obviously it's not winter at the moment, we've just passed the summer solstice, back 3 days after the summer solstice, so we got plenty of sun at the moment, even on overcast days pretty much. But anyway, here I am. I spent the day working on the circuit for this battery, and this is just the battery. Obviously if we follow this blue cable up we'll get to the board. Now the space in here is a bit cramped for me to give you a good overview of the board, but hopefully that's it. I can't really see very well in my viewfinder here, but we'll look at some of the components on here and I'll talk about them. Obviously the most obvious and important component here is the Morningstar Sunkeeper 12, and you might remember that from the postbag video I made a few days ago. Well, Zan doesn't fuck around. You know, one day it's a postbag video, the next day it's pressing the service. Well, that's not entirely true of all charge controllers. I do have a bit of a collection. I kind of collect small charge controllers for solar, like I collect distortion pedals for my guitar playing. Just because it's kind of interesting. Some people collect LED bulbs, I collect charge controllers, I guess. But anyway, so I thought I'd use the Sunkeeper. Well, as soon as I got it, I knew that this was the application I had in mind, because of the negative earth makes it really handy in this role. So that's the heart of this board. Here's the power input coming down here, coming down that bit of 6mm TPS like I was talking about the other day. The positive goes into this 20 amp breaker, which I'm going to swap for a better one. That was what I had on hand. I'll get another one of these Delta ones because these are really good. These old Siemens ones are getting a little bit sort of, the resistance of the contacts is a little bit high for 12 volt circuits. It'd be fine if you used it on the mains, but 12 volts it's a bit high. These Deltas are nice and low. So positive there, negative, and notice I've used this green wire, which is the 4mm wire rather than the 6mm. I could have used the black because that's also connected to my negative bus bar, but I'm saving that now because I'm going to use that as a separate negative return for these gels over here. At the moment that green wire there shares the negative return with the L12s, and I want to have its own, and 6mm will be heaps for that. The 4mm is heaps for this, and you'll see why in a sec, because we get to the next important component. The H4 headlight bulb out of the Celica. In fact, it might have been out of the Nissan, the old Nissan Prairie, and then out of the Celica. The Celica went through quite a few headlamps because of the flippy lights. It was kind of hard on the dip filament, which in most cars is the first one to fail, and thus rendering it useless for a headlamp bulb, but still perfectly good as some kind of resistor because you've still got the high beam filament. And that's exactly what I'm using here. It's a high beam filament, and the idea is that, well, the solar array connected to this cable here is massive. It could feed 50 amps down this cable if you gave it half a chance. 50 amps, no worries. I see the meter over here goes off the scale quite often now if you've had a heavy discharge on the batteries and the sun comes out on a bright morning, you know. So yeah, 50 amps, 12 amp charge controller, wouldn't be happy. So having this bulb in series between the breaker and the charge controller effectively feeds this with essentially a much smaller solar array. So this will probably only let about 5 or 6 amps pass. And the nice thing about it too is, of course, is when the sun's not very bright, and the resistance of this will actually shrink, and it will kind of let a bit more current through than a fixed resistor otherwise would. So it sort of acts as a current, well, it doesn't sort of, it really is. It's like a current regulator, eh? These things are very, very cool for that, actually. But I wanted about 5 amps in this circuit, and this is what this will give me. I could have used a 50 watt halogen dichromic bulb, you know, an MR16 type bulb, but I find that the car headlamps are just a little bit stiffer. You just get a bit more current out of them in the sort of in the low end, and they're heaps easier to mount. You don't need a light fixture. See, just screwed it on there. So that's why I use these. You might be thinking again, Zan's just made another circuit where he's wasting lots of power across a resistance, burning it off as heat and light. Well, it's not wasted power, because if this circuit wasn't here, that power wouldn't be used at all. It would have been nowhere. The solar panels would have never made it, because there would have been no load to take it. And when the sky's really cloudy, the resistance of this becomes so low it's almost out of circuit. So in the conditions where it's really critical to get all the juice that you need, the bulb doesn't really waste any of it. So yeah, you know, they're kind of quite clever, really. For those who are more technically inclined, it's simply a positive temperature coefficient non-linear resistor. That's exactly what it is. But of course it has the added bonuses. It makes a nice orange glow, and you can almost use it as an amp meter. So moving on, I got this nice barrier strip here. This came from Baffy's deceased uncle's estate, Artie's estate. This is a real meaty barrier strip. It's got this nice little plastic cover, which I should have left off for now while I'm testing, but I just wanted to show it to you. So I've made all my terminations in this. I was inspired to use that because of the Morningstar comes out as these forks, so I thought I'd just carry on with that kind of thing. There's my diode. There's my diode that jacks up the voltage of the Morningstar. It's in the ground return of the Morningstar. See, the ground comes out of the Morningstar, goes through that contact, through the diode, and through this green wire over here, where it joins with the actual negative there. And you'll notice I've only used a little wee tiny diode here. This is just a 1N4004, I think it is. And it's only rated for 1 amp. Well, even that is almost overkill, because this is only passing the current that the Morningstar takes to work from. It doesn't pass any charge current down this cable at any time. In fact, Morningstar didn't actually even need to use such a heavy cable for this wire, but I suppose they did just for physical reliability, and people might think it's a bit weird if it had a tiny ass ground wire coming out of it. So I shouldn't say ground, I should say negative, because ground can be a whole nother thing when it comes to solar systems, can't it? So that's pretty much it. We've done the circuit breakers, the Morningstar itself, the positive temperature coefficient resistor, and the barrier strip terminal. Oh, and I made this nice lead here. This is 2.9mm flat speaker cable. It'll be just fine for here. I've taken great pains to use quite heavy wiring here between the here and here. This is bigger than 6mm. This might be 7mm. I don't think it's quite 8. It might be 8. It is really heavy wire. It's definitely heavier than that 6. That's 6mm there. So this is heavier. It's probably slightly overkill, but you're better overkill than underkill when it comes to this. And that's not because of current. That's not because of current. I could have used a lot thinner wire that would have coped with the 5 or 6 amps that's going to flow through here. What that is because there is no sense wires on this charge controller. It just relies on the voltage sensor gets coming in its input on, you know, well, even the output, you could say. The charging output is also the sense input. You don't want any voltage drop between your battery and your charge controller. So that's why I'm really fussy about having a new circuit breaker on the battery circuit and using heavy wires. It doesn't matter so much if there's a little bit of voltage drop on the there, because I mean, hell, there's voltage drop here. So it doesn't really matter if this one's a little bit lossy, you know, 100 millivolts, 200 millivolts, who gives a fuck. But there, that's a huge difference, because that's the difference between a battery sitting at 14.4 or sitting at 14.2. That's a big difference. Okay, so yeah, heavy wire between the charge controller and the battery, not so much for your current rating, but for your low cable resistance. And that's pretty much it, really. Of course, as like most of my projects, by the time that I got all this hooked up together, there's no more sun really to see it really going, so hence no glim from the filament of that H4 headlamp. I can't even be bothered putting my clamp meter on it, because there'll probably only be mouse currents running through here now, but there is some, I know that, because when this battery was off, it was, well, it was not charging or doing anything. It was sitting at 12.8, and as soon as I hooked up the circuit and got it going, it rose to 13.2, and then next time I measured it was 13.4, so there's definitely current flowing here, so we'll just have to wait till tomorrow to see what that does. What else can I say about it? Oh, the battery itself has been sitting here for the last, oh shit, I don't know, 6 months, maybe longer, since I got it. I haven't really done much with it, but it's been sitting here continuously topped up by the little 15 watt amorphous panel that comes on the roof, that comes down this wire through the old SolarX SR4, which I have now decommissioned, disconnected the solar panel, and tomorrow when I can be bothered, I'll be stripping all this stuff out, although that's just really just one screw, just pull it out. That's not needed now. Not sure what I'm going to do with a 15 watt panel, where, I mean, I could just tie it into the main array and it could just be another 15 watts of the whole, you know, that's okay, it's not wasting it. But then I could also use it as an independent supply like it is now for something, possibly even run through to the workshop for independent battery charging and mucking around. But I don't know, I'll do something with it anyway. I'm not going to take it off the roof, I'll leave it where it is. Oh, unless I take it off the roof and put a bigger one there, but that's a possibility too, isn't it? That is a real possibility. I hadn't thought of that until now. You know, there's always something to do with solar array. I mean, always something to do, especially when you've got a setup like mine, where it's basically, you know, homemade wires everywhere, you know. Always something in progress, clip leads still everywhere. I still haven't cased up this regulator yet. It just works fine as it is, so it's not, I haven't got around to it. But sort of, you know, there have been things that have been high priorities, like, you know, like the version controller, which is working extremely well. Baffy made some kale chips today in the toaster oven thanks to having this. The time switch on the L12s, they are L12s, I was calling them golf carts because I couldn't remember if they're L12s or what they were, but look, L12, right there, they're L12s. Okay, yeah, that's been set to, at midday it shorts out the diode, which drops the charging voltage on the Morningstar, and then at 5:30 it kicks it back in. I've already talked about that, but I'm thinking today about either giving it a longer period or alternating it, only giving that 15 volt charge every other day, because at the moment, you know, we're getting heaps of sun. And yeah, we did put some new LED light bulbs in the lounge. We put a nice 7 watt Philips filament LED in one of those sort of old Edison style glass envelopes kind of thing, hanging off the bottom of the chandelier. It looks pretty cool, looks real steampunk. And I also took out the remaining CFL that was in there and actually replaced it with a 25 watt vintage filament incandescent, and you know, that's using up more power now, but I deliberately did that because I kind of wanted to see one of those vintage filament bulbs going, and at the moment I feel it's kind of a little bit necessary to burn off a wee bit of power from the lighting bank during the day, so it's not just getting underutilized and getting slammed up every day with charge with only discharge, you know. Some may question the merits of that, but you know, I can do it, it's fine. So what I'm hoping, I mean, this is getting a ramble, but I think it's an alright ramble, isn't it? What I'm hoping is that what I'll be doing is bringing a few more smaller 12 volt flooded batteries in here, mainly deep cycle batteries, could be a couple of car batteries, but probably deep cycles. and hooking them up, and pretty much then letting them do the job of what these gels are doing now, which is the night batteries. These are the night batteries, and they're what we switch the computer to over at night to sort of give the main bank over here a bit of a break, and well, so it can just run the TV later on kind of thing, and not the computers. But what I'd rather do, because gels aren't really the kind of batteries that you want to be heavily cycling, although I don't think they get that much cycling, but what I want to do is get these gels off being the night batteries and make this bank here the night batteries, and just save these for sort of emergency batteries. Like, I'll just keep them charged and not too fiercely, you know, just like a light sort of float charge on them, so they're well charged up, and only use them occasionally, like when we've got a succession of cloudy days and these ones here start running out of grunt. Well, that's the idea anyway. Yeah, that's basically the idea. If the performance of these doesn't quite match that, then that may not be a doer. So we're just going to have to see how that goes. And that's basically it, really. This has turned into be a little bit of a rant. In fact, so much so I ran out of memory on my little Sony video, well, Baffy's actually technically, Sony video camera, and so I've had to actually grab the phone and finish off the last bit, which means now I've got to edit this video together, which is annoying because I was hoping I could have just shot it in cam as one contiguous video. Now it's going to take editing, which will take ages for it to render. Bugger. But that's a little bit more of the setup and what I've done. Looks like, according to the Sunkeeper, there is still charging going on, because when this charging stops for the day, this LED will go out completely, apart from its occasional I'm still on blink. So it'll be interesting to see what this is like tomorrow with a bit of sun. There we go.
Day 354 off the grid.
3 days after the summer solstice.